Hello and welcome to another tutorial for Scratch. Today we're going to be taking a look at boundaries within our game. Okay, so first of all, I've set up 5 boundaries as you can see here, and I've just got my pieces on the side which I'll just quickly drag in as we go, just to make things a bit quicker. So let's jump straight into it. I've actually set up my 5 boundaries as in a clockwise direction. So the first one, boundary 1, is actually where the character is at the bottom of the screen. So if you can see here, basically he's at -110. That's the first one. The second one is this point here at the end of the room, which is an X position. The third one is just under the dark space underneath the bed here. The fourth one is at the edge of the bed, and the fifth one's just this wall here. Okay, so let's jump straight into it. I've actually set up these points obviously before according to where the character, where I was just positioning him. Okay. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is we need to look at the S key. Okay, now the S key is obviously my down key. I'm using AWSD, and I want to set up some control. So I'm going to use an if else, and I'm also going to use an OR operator. Alrighty, so let's just add something in here. The first thing I'm going to add in to our statement is if the Y position of the character is less than boundary 1, which is of course our bottom boundary, or it's equal to boundary 1. Okay, if we just need to set it back to boundary 1. So obviously he can't go outside of that boundary. Okay, so it's roughly 110 there. If he goes outside or it's equal to, he just sets him back to our boundary here. Otherwise, we just want him to continue in the -6, okay, by going down the screen. Okay, so that's fairly simple. We'll put that up into our S, so when that's pressed, that happens. Now here's one I prepared earlier. We want to grab the W key when pressed, first of all. So our W is obviously our down key. Now let's just pull this apart so we can analyze it. Okay, first of all, what you'll notice is that the if statement here is actually very similar to this one. It just, the sign's been turned around the other way to a greater than, and it's obviously talking about boundary 3 now. We're just saying we need to restrict the character so that he doesn't go past that boundary there at that point. So boundary 3 being underneath the bed here. And that is, of course, if we look at up here, it's -30. Okay, and you can see it on our screen here as well. Alright, so otherwise we just keep on going up in a positive numbers by 6, pardon me. So what we actually want to do before that, though, is check something that's happening on the X position here, which is obviously boundary 4, and that being 8.4. So what it's doing is actually doing a check to see if it's greater, if the character is greater than this point. Just set him so he's actually greater. It's greater than this point here, so he will actually be able to then move upwards. Okay, so it needs to do that check first. Alright, so this is it here. Okay, so let's just move this back down into our else, and let's have a look at it as a whole. So if it's greater than boundary 4 on the X position, he can then move freely upwards. Okay, so let's just see what actually happens if I don't add that control in. Okay, he'll actually get to the point here and won't be able to move up at all. I'm actually pressing the up key, and he can't move past this point here. So that's why I have to add that extra bit of control in there to say that he can move past it. Okay, so you can see now he can't move past the bed, pressing up, but once he gets past here, that's what this bit of code's here is doing. Okay, you can see I can still move past this point now, which is why, brings me to the next point, I need to say the third part of this is another if statement saying if it's greater than our fifth boundary, which is this one here, we need to set it back to it. Okay, so he's moving outside of there now. Watch what happens. I'll put that into when we press our W key, because remember, all of this is being tested when we press the W key. So he moves up, and I'm still pressing W key, and he can't move outside of that point there. Okay, so we will now check the A direction. And this is fairly straightforward. It's very similar again, but we're actually checking boundary 2, which is this point here. We don't want him to be anything, and remember our signs here, okay? So this one is actually less. If you see our character, he's walking, he's actually going minus, minus, minus on the X position. And if he's less than the boundary 2, which is of course around about that 189, or equal to that, then you need to set him back to that boundary so he doesn't go outside of it. Otherwise, he can just move freely in a -6, change X by -6, okay? It may look a little bit funny on your screen, but I've got to do a little bit more with it. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is on the A key, we need to just check for the fourth boundary, which is of course this boundary up here, because watch what happens if I don't have it. He'll actually walk past. Okay, he'll walk out of that bit. We don't want him to do that. We want him to stop there. We add this control in, which says if he's less than this boundary, and this is the other bit that we haven't seen yet, and it's also checking if it's greater than -20 on the Y position, which is this bit here. So if these two things check out, he can't walk past this boundary, so set him back to boundary 4. And we haven't actually finished the D yet, but I will work on that next. Hopefully this will just get you started, and you'll be able to do something similar with boundaries in your game. Thanks for watching.